Hello, it's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you for inviting me. So, have any of you ever had a crazy childhood dream? I mean, things like going to space, being elected prime minister. I know that being a racing car driver is some people's fantasy. For me, my childhood fantasy has always been about going into technology and business. When I was 11 years old, like many young people in this country, I got my first iPod Touch. And from then on, I was exposed to the world of mobile applications and software. When I downloaded some of the first apps, I was amazed by what I saw, and I instantly fell in love with technology. After that, my desire became to learn more about how applications are developed and learn how to create my own. So I searched around the internet, and what was returned to me was loads of jargon which my 11-year-old self could not understand. And from then on, I felt like I would never be able to learn how software was developed, and I was never able to develop mobile applications. So, like many people who try to follow their dreams and fantasies, by the research stage, I went on with my life, going through school, not being able to do what I wanted to do. The problem was that I was surrounded by technology all the time, and as years went past, more people got smartphones, and more apps became popular. And this only fueled my desire to learn more about technology and to be able to create my own mobile applications. So a few years later, I went back to my dream and decided to search the internet again, try learn more about how mobile applications worked. And at this time, it was all before initiatives such as coding in schools began. And I was very much alone, and it was all in my free time. And luckily, I came across a new website that was developed specifically towards young people to teach them how to code. And after a few weeks, I'd quickly picked up web development. And once I'd made my first website, I was amazed by what I'd created. And already, I was on my way to fulfilling my dream. And after that, I thought, well, many other people would have a similar childhood dream to me, and I'm sure that many other young people at that time were interested in technology and creating software. So I went online again, and I went to social media, and I found some other people that were interested in coding too. I asked them if they wanted to collaborate, and there at age 13, I had my own software development startup. Now, it wasn't as amazing as it sounds. When you say software development startup, you think of like awesome offices with like slides and stuff. I mean, it was none of that, but it became my hobby, and I'd created my own apps. I mean, they were nothing groundbreaking. They were just copies of other things that had been made, but I'd achieved my dream. But the problem is, then, I open the news one morning, and you hear all the popular stories of like a 12-year-old creating an app in their bedroom and then selling it to some big company for a few million. And I was like, well, I could be that person. So I then decided to look into how I could expand my startup. So I went online again, and I looked into how I can officially create a company and how I can make my apps even better. But the problem was that in the UK, you have to be 16 to register a company, and I'm still 15. And also to submit to certain app stores, you need to be a certain age too. And those limitations stood in front of me, and I was too scared to ask my dad to register for me because he thought that coding was a waste of time, and he thought I should be focusing on my homework. So I was too scared to ask him. But a few months later, I was brave enough to ask him to do it on my behalf, and we managed to register the company. And then after that, the months went by, we created partnerships, we managed to start making some money, and my company didn't just become a bunch of teens in a group chat creating some app. We were actually going places, creating real products. And that's led me to learn about one thing about dreams and ambitions, is that many people get stuck when they want to do something after the research stage. I said a lot about going online to research how to do something. And many people, they go to research a dream or an ambition, and then they think, oh, it's too hard, oh, I can't do this, oh, I'm too young. Those are things that I faced. But I was lucky enough to be able to go past that and get around those limitations. One example of someone I do know who their dreams have shrunk because of their research is a friend I had in Australia, and her dream was always to go to university in the US. And she started to research about doing SATs and stuff, and the Australian exams, she said, were hard enough already. And then soon that dream shrunk, and she now goes to a university in Australia. But it's not a problem to compromise, but I think that I genuinely believe that if she pushed herself as hard as she could have gone to university in the US, because a lot of people do, and a lot of people can, so she could have done that. And that's, even though I'm only 15 and I shouldn't really give life lessons, I think that as we grow older, our sense of what we can do gets smaller. I mean, when we're only maybe 7 or 8, we might have the dream of going to space. But when we get a lot older, we think about paying off our mortgage. And that's a lot smaller ambition, because I feel as we get older, we see more of the world and more things come into our life which limit us. So that's why I think your childhood dreams are important, because especially if you're still young now, like many of you are, you still have the opportunity and chance to actually go and do it. But the older you get, the more things come into your life, I feel, and more responsibilities you have. But dreams don't necessarily always shrink as you get older. I mean, I make getting older sound like a very bad thing. But one example I've had in my career being an entrepreneur is sometimes your dreams do get bigger. So last summer I hosted a conference, as said in the introduction, and we had 120 teen entrepreneurs like myself from across the country to come together in London to get them to network, meet each other, learn from some other teen entrepreneurs, and it was a great success. I mean, originally the plan was only to have around 50 in one small room, but we expanded that, and now in 2017, we're having conferences of around 300 people across the world. So my dream of connecting people like myself and bringing them together has only expanded with time. So I think, especially with your dreams, it's the research stage that slows people down. But it's also important not to be too ambitious, because I say don't let knowledge bring you down. Like, people, as I said, often get stopped by the research stage, and when you look into something they think is too hard. But it's also important not to be too ambitious, and that's something I've experienced myself. Because you need a balance, like anything in life, to move forward. So if you have too much ambition, your dream, I feel, can be too much to manage. But if you have too much compromise and let too many things get in the way of your dream, then it'll become too small and you'll underachieve. And it's a bit like how you need protein in your diet, but you can't have too much, or when you need sugars in your diet too, but you don't need too much, but you can't have too little. Curiosity is another thing I believe which is important to achieving your childhood dreams. I mean, when we're young, we're so curious into certain things. We try new things. But as we get older, we gain more knowledge and the curiosity declines. One time I was too curious was when I was creating, I guess, an app for the charity. And although it came out a success, when I saw this partnership, I was like, yes, this is going to be big. But when I actually came around to doing it, we had a lot of issues. For example, one of our team members, he left our team randomly, vanished into thin air 1 week before we were supposed to launch the app, and we were all panicking, and that was the problem with our team, because I'd never met any of these people in person. They can just vanish and not pick up their phone, and that's it. So And then 1 week before, we didn't have the app ready, and it was launching in the Houses of Parliament, so it was quite big. And luckily, we managed to get someone to sort it out. But that's when I was too curious, and I took on too many projects at the same time, and I was over-ambitious, but that led me to some problems. But one time, I didn't gain enough knowledge on what I was doing either. Again, knowledge and curiosity are related. And I hired someone to be our head of operations. And many people have the same dreams. I mean, I'm sure many people want to be prime minister or go to space. I mean, lots of people want to do that, right? And same with being an entrepreneur. Lots of people wanted to go into business. Lots of people wanted to have their own startup in their bedroom, which makes £12 million by selling it to a company the next day. Many people want that. When this guy came to my company, he saw something what I didn't have. And I believe one of my personal strengths is in recruiting. I mean, I'm very good at just messaging students across the world and being able to say, hey, do you want to join my startup? Do you want to work with us to like create something awesome? And many of them say yes. But some other entrepreneurs are not as good as doing that. So one guy joined, and his aim was to do the same thing we were doing, and he tried to persuade many developers to leave our team. And that's one time where I didn't follow my knowledge correctly. I didn't research him, interview him properly, and he almost destroyed my startup. So that's one time when I think it's important to make sure you gain knowledge beforehand. So another aspect that I've worked on my dreams has come out of actually following them. So when I started to learn to code, it was very hard. I was going over many different websites. There were no clubs near me, and it was very hard to find one that was suited to me because many were suited towards a more adult audience or to people who'd already started to learn to code. So it was very hard for me. And I decided at my own company to create my own platform that can allow people to sort of learn anything, really. So we took the model of allowing community collaboration, and we tried to put the classroom online. So our latest product aims to sort of create a live classroom, and anyone can teach on it, and anyone can learn. And we hope we can create a new sector in EdTech by doing that. So that's the latest thing we're working on. And yeah, knowledge is much easier to get than curiosity. And when we're young, curiosity can come out of anything. So if you're, most of us in the audience now are young, got a lot of future ahead of us, utilize your curiosity now to go into many paths, and I think that you shouldn't let too many other external conditions affect your ability to grow to the best that you can be. And finally, I guess, you need a balance between curiosity and knowledge, and you also need a balance between ambition and compromise. And amongst all of that, you need some hope involved too, because if you don't have hope when following your dreams, then I don't think you'll get very far. And you should use the dreams you have had in the past and the present, especially the ones you've had when you were much younger, because those often reveal much about you, even though sometimes some people say you learn more about yourself as you get older. I think sometimes when you're young too, it helps you to learn who you are. Use those to create your own dream in the future. So, yeah, thank you.